It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in Maplewood, the kind of day when the sun hung low and golden over the streets, casting long shadows that stretched lazily across the sidewalks. Claire sat by her living room window, holding a cup of tea that had already gone lukewarm. She had tried to distract herself with a book, but the words seemed to blur together, her thoughts drifting to Daniel, her husband, who had been buried in work for weeks, leaving her feeling invisible in her own home. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that pressed against her chest and made her restless. Claire's eyes wandered over the garden she had tried to maintain with care, the flowers blooming but somehow seeming to lack color, the grass neatly trimmed yet somehow lifeless. She sighed softly, wishing for some change, some interruption, anything that could break the monotony. Just as she was about to set the cup aside, a knock came at the door, sharp but polite, making her jump slightly. Her heart skipped a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone, and the quiet of the house suddenly felt heavier. She opened the door and found Tyler standing there, a boy from next door, barely 19, carrying a small backpack slung over one shoulder, his dark hair slightly messy from the wind, his brown eyes wide, almost wary, as if he had rehearsed this moment a dozen times but still wasn't sure what to say. He smiled politely, his hand fidgeting at the strap of the bag. "Hi, Mrs. Claire," he said softly. "Is it okay if I come in for a bit?" Claire blinked, caught off guard. "Of course, Tyler, come in," she said, stepping aside, the air between them already charged with curiosity, the moment strange yet oddly comforting. Tyler hesitated for a second at the threshold, then stepped in, the backpack bouncing slightly as he moved, and Claire noticed the tension in his posture, the way he seemed almost too tall for his age, the quiet way he avoided meeting her gaze fully. "Are you okay?" she asked gently, her voice soft, carrying concern. She gestured to the couch, and Tyler nodded, sinking into the cushions as if he had been waiting for this moment all day. I just needed someone to talk to, Mrs. Claire," he admitted, voice trembling slightly. "It's kind of personal." Claire felt a strange warmth spreading in her chest, a mixture of worry and curiosity. She poured him a glass of water and sat beside him. "You can tell me anything," she said softly, and for a moment, Tyler seemed unsure if he should speak. Then slowly, words began to flow, hesitant at first, but gaining confidence. He talked about school, the pressure from teachers, the fights with friends, the sense of loneliness that made him feel like no one understood him. As he spoke, Claire realized how much she missed this kind of connection herself. She had been so wrapped up in her own life, in her husband's work and the routines of home, that she hadn't noticed the quiet ache inside her own heart, the longing to be seen, to be heard. And now, sitting next to Tyler, she felt that ache echo back, the room suddenly alive with conversation, laughter mixed with sighs, a warmth she hadn't realized she needed. Tyler's stories sometimes made her laugh, soft giggles escaping her lips, sometimes made her frown, her heart tightening with empathy for the struggles of someone so young, yet mature beyond his years. And as the hours passed, Claire felt a connection growing, one that went beyond simple neighborly concern. There was something electric in the ease with which they shared their thoughts, a subtle intimacy that neither fully understood, yet both recognized. She noticed the way Tyler's fingers brushed hers occasionally as he gestured while speaking, small touches that were innocent, yet sent a shiver up her spine. She quickly reminded herself that he was just a boy, just a neighbor's son, but the feeling lingered, uncomfortable yet undeniable, a whisper of something forbidden, something she couldn't name but couldn't ignore. The conversation wandered from school and work to dreams and fears. Tyler confessed his ambitions, his doubts, and Claire found herself sharing things she hadn't told anyone for years, memories from her youth, regrets she had buried, little victories and small heartbreaks, and Tyler listened, eyes wide, absorbing every word, nodding, asking questions that revealed a surprising depth of understanding. Time slipped by unnoticed, and soon the sunlight faded, the sky outside turning shades of orange and pink, the quiet hum of the neighborhood settling in for the evening, and Claire realized how much she had come to enjoy his presence, the way he made the room feel alive, the way he seemed to see her, really see her, in a way that had been missing for too long. Finally, Tyler shifted, glancing at the window. "I guess I should go home now," he said, though his voice lacked the certainty he tried to project. There was hesitation, a weight to the words, and Claire nodded silently, feeling a pang she didn't expect. The ache of saying goodbye to someone who had become a sudden, unexpected part of her world. As he stood, his eyes met hers, and for a fleeting moment, something passed between them, a silent understanding, a connection neither of them could fully explain. Claire felt a flutter in her chest, a mixture of longing, worry, and something almost tenderly forbidden. She tried to push it aside, telling herself it was just concern, just human connection, yet her heart betrayed her, racing in a way that made her feel alive and terrified at the same time. Tyler gathered his backpack, hesitated at the door, and then smiled softly. "Thanks, Mrs. Claire," he said, and the simplicity of the words carried more weight than she expected. She smiled back, watching him walk down the sidewalk, the fading light catching his hair, making him glow in the last rays of the sun, and when he disappeared around the corner, the room felt empty again, quieter than before. Claire closed the door slowly, leaning against it for a moment, her mind replaying the afternoon, the laughter, the stories, the accidental touches, and the strange warmth she hadn't felt in years. It was as if someone had opened a window in her heart, letting in a breeze she didn't know she needed, and yet, along with that warmth came unease, the awareness that this connection, innocent as it seemed, was stirring emotions she had long buried. She moved back to the couch, sitting down with her hands wrapped around her cup of tea, now cold and forgotten, staring at the floor as if answers might be hidden there. She wondered about boundaries, about what was appropriate, about the pull she felt towards someone so young and the guilt that followed almost immediately. She tried to remind herself of her life, of her husband, of the world outside that demanded responsibility, but the image of Tyler, his wide eyes and hesitant smile, lingered in her mind, refusing to leave. That night, Claire couldn't sleep, tossing and turning, her thoughts circling endlessly, the afternoon replaying like a vivid dream, her heart still racing, her mind full of questions with no answers, the quiet of the house amplifying the absence of sound from Tyler's visit, and she realized that something inside her had shifted, something small but powerful, a spark that had been ignited unexpectedly, and she didn't yet know how to handle it. She thought about calling him back, just to ask one more question, just to hear his voice again, but quickly shook her head, afraid of what that might mean, of the line she might cross, the rules she had always lived by. Yet a part of her longed to see him again, to feel that strange, electric connection that had made the day feel brighter than anything in weeks. By the time morning came, Claire was exhausted but restless, the memory of Tyler's visit still vivid, his laughter, his stories, the shy glances, all replaying in her mind as she prepared for another quiet day, and she knew, deep down, that life had changed in a small but significant way, that something unexpected had entered her world, something that would challenge her emotions, her decisions, and her heart in ways she could not yet foresee. And as the sun rose over Maplewood, spilling soft light across the neighborhood. Claire looked out the window once more, half expecting to see Tyler walking down the street again, a mix of hope and fear tightening in her chest, the quiet house no longer feeling empty, but charged with the memory of a day that would stay with her forever, a day that had started with a simple knock at the door, yet had changed everything in ways she could not explain. The days after Tyler's first visit passed slowly for Claire, each one marked by a quiet longing she hadn't expected. She found herself glancing at the empty seat across from her during breakfast, imagining him sitting there, laughing or telling a story. And the house felt colder whenever Daniel was late again from work. She tried to focus on chores, on calls to friends, even on reading, but her mind kept wandering back to Tyler, the way he had opened up to her, the warmth of his presence lingering like sunlight that refused to fade. When Tyler knocked on her door the following weekend, carrying a small sketchbook, Claire's heart skipped. She had barely noticed the sound of footsteps before, but now it made her pulse race. She opened the door and smiled. "Hi, Tyler," she said. Trying to keep her voice steady, he returned her smile, shy but genuine, the kind that made her feel both protective and alive. He stepped inside quickly, almost nervously, setting his backpack down and holding out the sketchbook. "I drew some things I wanted to show you," he said softly, and she felt a warmth in her chest that surprised her. They sat together on the couch, the sketchbook open between them, Tyler pointing to small drawings of the town, little scenes of the streets, the park, even her house from across the way. Claire leaned in, examining the sketches with interest, commenting on the details, praising his talent, and Tyler's face lit up with pride, the conversation flowing easily, their laughter filling the quiet house, the comfort between them growing with each passing minute. As the afternoon wore on, the sky darkened, clouds rolling in, and soon raindrops began tapping against the windows. Claire didn't notice at first, lost in Tyler's stories and the easy connection, the way he spoke of dreams he hadn't shared with anyone else, hopes of studying art or traveling, fears about the future, insecurities he kept hidden behind polite smiles, and she found herself sharing her own regrets, moments she had never spoken of, memories from her youth, the early days of her marriage, the dreams she had let go. And Tyler listened, eyes wide, nodding, asking questions that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. The rain grew heavier, and the sound of it on the windows created a cocoon around them, the soft patter blending with their quiet conversation, the room feeling intimate in a way that was both comforting and dangerous. Tyler's hand brushed hers as he pointed to a drawing, a fleeting touch that sent a shiver up Claire's arm. She quickly looked away, heart racing, yet she didn't pull back entirely, letting the warmth linger, confusing and exciting all at once. They talked about movies, favorite books, music, and the little things that made them happy, each moment building a bond that was emotional and real, yet teetering on a delicate line. Claire felt the pull of attraction she knew she shouldn't feel, a mix of loneliness and longing that had been growing silently. Tyler, for his part, seemed aware of the tension, the way he kept glancing at her with a quiet intensity, a respect for boundaries, but also a desire that was palpable in the space between them. Hours passed almost unnoticed, the rain still tapping against the windows, the light fading as the day moved toward evening. Tyler hesitated as he gathered the sketches, the backpack sitting nearby, and Claire felt the weight of the moment. The connection they shared so intense that it made her breathe faster. She told herself it was only care, only friendship, but the flutter in her chest refused to lie. She could not deny the feelings that had begun to grow, subtle, unspoken, yet undeniable. At one point, Tyler looked at her, eyes wide and earnest. "Mrs. Claire, "Do you ever feel lonely?" he asked softly, his voice barely above the sound of the rain, and Claire swallowed hard, nodding. "Yes, more than I should," she admitted, and the honesty in her own voice surprised her, the words raw and unpolished, carrying the weight of years of neglect, of quiet longing, of unmet needs, and Tyler's expression softened, almost protective, almost tender, and the room felt suspended in a fragile moment between care and desire. Claire noticed the way the candlelight flickered, shadows dancing across the walls, Tyler sitting close, careful but attentive, sharing stories, dreams, secrets, and she realized how much she craved this intimacy, the kind that went beyond small talk or polite neighborly concern, yet she also felt the danger, the edge of something forbidden that hovered just beneath the surface, the line between comfort and attraction so thin she could almost see it. Tyler leaned forward slightly to show her a sketch of the garden, his hand brushing hers again, a spark running up her arm, and Claire froze, heart pounding, aware that she was standing at the edge of a line she shouldn't cross, yet unable to stop the warmth that spread through her chest. Their eyes met, lingering for a heartbeat too long, an unspoken understanding passing between them, the tension building, fragile and electric, and for a second, the world outside ceased to exist, leaving only them in the glow of candlelight and rain. Suddenly, a noise from outside startled them both, a car pulling into the driveway, and the spell broke instantly. Tyler's body stiffened, and Claire felt her pulse slow, the tension dissipating like mist in sunlight. I should go," he said, gathering his sketches, the moment hanging in the air between them, unresolved, charged with emotion, yet left unfulfilled. He smiled shyly, a mixture of apology and longing, and Claire nodded, swallowing hard, unable to speak, her heart heavy and alive at the same time. Tyler walked toward the door, stopping for a moment, looking back at her, eyes full of unspoken words, and Claire felt the ache of letting him leave, of denying herself the connection she both wanted and feared. She watched him disappear into the rainy evening, the sound of his footsteps fading, leaving the house silent, the room charged with memory and emotion, a warmth that lingered long after he had gone. The night stretched on, Claire sitting by the window, the rain falling softly against the glass, her mind replaying every detail, the way he had looked at her, the shy smiles, the accidental touches, the way he had trusted her with his fears, and she realized how much she had come to care for him, a care that went beyond simple neighborly concern, a care tangled with longing and guilt and fascination. She thought about the almost touch, the spark that had run through her at the brief contact of their hands, the unspoken bond, and the dangerous excitement it brought. She told herself to ignore it, to focus on Daniel, on life, on responsibilities. But the memory refused to leave, wrapping around her like a soft, persistent shadow. In the days that followed, Claire found herself thinking about Tyler constantly, wondering when she would see him again, wondering if he felt the same tension, the same pull, the same longing that she did. She imagined the candlelight, the rain, the quiet laughter, the shared secrets, and a bittersweet ache settled in her chest, knowing that what had almost happened could never truly happen, yet unable to deny the feelings that had awakened within her. Tyler, for his part, seemed equally restless, appearing at the door more frequently, bringing small sketches, sharing little stories, each visit strengthening the bond between them, each smile, each laugh, each touch a reminder of the line they were walking, the boundary that must not be crossed, yet the desire simmering quietly, dangerously, just beneath the surface. One evening, Tyler arrived with a small painting he had made of the park, rain still falling lightly outside, and Claire couldn't help but admire it, the colors vibrant, the strokes confident, and in that moment, their hands touched briefly again as she passed him a cup of tea, and the spark returned, undeniable, fleeting, but powerful, reminding them both of the tension that existed between care, attraction, and the almost forbidden. Claire looked at Tyler, his expression earnest, vulnerable, and she knew they were both aware of the line they had almost crossed, the moments where intimacy and attraction had flirted dangerously with something more, and she realized that their connection was real, emotional, and deep, yet it had to be handled with care, with respect, with boundaries that neither wanted to break but that both felt tightening around them like a quiet warning. As Tyler finally gathered his things and prepared to leave, Claire felt a heaviness in her chest, the ache of longing, the pull of what could have been, and the knowledge that they were both navigating emotions far beyond friendship, emotions that could change lives if given free rein, the candlelight casting soft shadows across the room, the sound of rain outside blending with the quiet in her heart, leaving her both alive and terrified. Tyler smiled softly. "I should go," he said again, and Claire nodded, her voice caught somewhere between farewell and wish, watching him step out into the rainy evening, the connection between them unresolved, electric, haunting, leaving her alone with her thoughts, the warmth of his presence lingering like a shadow, and the knowledge that the line they had almost crossed would shape the days to come, a memory that neither would forget, a temptation neither could act on, yet a bond neither could ignore. The week after the rainy afternoon felt endless for Claire, each day stretching longer than the last. She found herself glancing at the front door whenever a knock sounded, her heart skipping even though she knew it might just be a delivery, a neighbor, anyone, yet secretly hoping it would be Tyler, the thought of him visiting again filling her chest with a mixture of anticipation and guilt. Daniel continued to work late nights, buried in reports and meetings, his absence more pronounced than ever, leaving Claire alone in a house that suddenly felt too quiet, too still, the memories of their previous encounters replaying in her mind endlessly. On Thursday evening, her phone rang, and when she saw Tyler's name on the screen, a rush of relief and tension washed over her. She answered quickly. "Hi, Tyler," she said, voice trembling slightly, and he spoke softly. "Mrs. Claire, can I come over?" I really need to talk." She hesitated for a heartbeat, knowing she should say no, but her curiosity, and something deeper, something unspoken, urged her to agree. "Okay, come in," she said, and the sound of his footsteps approaching filled her with nervous excitement. When Tyler arrived, he seemed more serious than usual, carrying nothing but a notebook, his expression earnest, almost fragile. He looked at her with eyes that seemed older than his age, aware of the tension that lingered between them, and Claire felt her chest tighten, the memory of the rain, the sketches, the candlelight, returning in a flood. She offered him tea, and they sat close on the couch, the air thick with unspoken words, the warmth of their proximity sending subtle shivers through her. Tyler began to speak about school, his struggles, the pressure to perform, the isolation he sometimes felt among friends who didn't understand him, and Claire listened with care, giving advice, sharing encouragement, reminding him of his strengths. Her words gentle yet firm, comforting yet honest, the intimacy between them growing, emotional and real, their hands brushing now and then, brief touches that lingered, but neither moved further, both aware of the line that could not be crossed, yet savoring the warmth that came with closeness. Hours passed, the room growing darker, the city lights flickering through the windows, shadows dancing across the walls, and Claire realized how much she needed this connection, this rare bond that made her feel alive again. Tyler's presence stirred emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years, longing, desire, protectiveness, yet also a quiet fear of what these feelings could mean if they were acted upon. She found herself laughing more freely, opening up more than she had in months. And Tyler, in turn, shared pieces of himself he had never told anyone, his voice soft, honest, vulnerable. At one point, Tyler's hand rested on hers briefly while showing her a drawing, a spark running through both of them, a quiet electric tension that made Claire's heart pound. She pulled her hand back just slightly, aware of the danger of feeling so strongly for someone young enough to still be her neighbor's son, yet unable to deny the intensity of the connection. The way his eyes searched hers for understanding, reassurance, perhaps even permission to feel the same pull. The room heavy with words left unspoken. Tyler looked at her, hesitant. "Mrs. Claire, do you ever wish things could be different?" he asked, voice trembling slightly, and she swallowed hard, the words resonating in her heart. "Sometimes, yes," she admitted quietly, and they both felt the truth of that moment, the pull of feelings that were real but complicated, dangerous if acted upon, yet impossible to ignore, the emotional tension almost tangible, a fragile thread connecting them, suspended in a delicate balance. The night deepened, and Tyler admitted he had been struggling more than he wanted to show, feeling isolated, unsure of himself, afraid of disappointing those around him, and Claire responded with empathy, encouragement, stories of her own mistakes and moments of fear, reminding him that imperfection was part of life, the conversation weaving a fabric of trust and understanding, the kind that makes hearts open, makes walls come down, and Tyler leaned slightly closer, a subtle gesture of need, of comfort, of trust, and Claire felt her heart race, knowing the emotional intimacy could easily tip into something more if they weren't careful. At the same time, Claire reflected on her marriage, on the distance she felt from Daniel, the absence that had left her longing for connection, the way Tyler filled that void without even trying, and she understood that this bond was not just about attraction, but about being seen, being understood, being valued, emotions she hadn't realized she was missing, yet she also knew that indulging these feelings could have consequences she wasn't ready to face. Tyler stayed longer than expected, the conversation flowing, the comfort of shared secrets creating a bubble around them, and the room felt suspended in time, the outside world irrelevant, their connection palpable, fragile, yet strong. And the knowledge that neither could act on the attraction added a layer of tension that made every glance, every brush of hands, every soft laugh charged with unspoken emotion. Finally, as the evening drew to a close, Tyler stood, gathering his notebook, his movements hesitant, almost reluctant, and Claire felt a pang of loss, of wanting more time, more connection, but also relief, knowing that they had both exercised restraint. The line unbroken, the emotional bond intact but controlled, she met his gaze. "Tyler, I care about you," she said quietly, and the words hung in the room, full of meaning, full of emotion, unspoken truths that neither could act on, yet both acknowledged. Tyler nodded, eyes wide, voice low. "I care about you too, Mrs. Claire," he admitted, and the weight of their feelings filled the space between them, intense yet contained, a shared understanding of longing and restraint, desire and responsibility, the consequences of crossing the line clear to both, the emotions raw, real, but tempered by awareness, respect, and the fragile reality of life outside the house. As he stepped toward the door, the quiet of the house felt heavier, charged with memory and emotion. Claire watched him leave, the cool night air closing the space between them, and she realized that what they shared would linger, a memory that neither could erase, a connection that would shape her days, her thoughts, her heart, even if it could never fully be acted upon. The days following Tyler's visit were filled with reflection, longing, and quiet ache. Claire went through her routine, tried to focus on Daniel, on life, yet the memory of Tyler's presence remained, soft but insistent. The moments they shared, the laughter, the shared stories, the almost touch, all replaying in her mind, teaching her about the fragile nature of human connection, the power of emotional intimacy, and the bittersweet reality of desire restrained by responsibility. Claire realized that sometimes, the heart feels deeply even when the mind knows boundaries must be maintained, that connection, care, and attraction can exist without crossing lines, that longing can be beautiful even when it is unfulfilled, and that real strength lies in choosing restraint when giving in could cause harm. The memory of Tyler, his eyes, his words, his laughter, remained a vivid thread woven into the fabric of her life, a reminder of what it meant to feel truly seen, understood, and alive. She found herself looking out the window in the evenings, imagining him walking down the street, wondering how he was feeling, whether he thought of her too, the ache of longing tempered by pride in their mutual restraint, and she understood that this connection, intense and emotional, could be a source of quiet strength, teaching her to navigate her own heart with care, teaching her the delicate balance between desire and responsibility, between connection and consequence. Months later, Claire still carried the memory of Tyler's visits, the emotional bond that had formed, the intensity of what could have been, the knowledge that some feelings must remain unacted upon to protect everyone involved. Yet the warmth of the connection remained, comforting and bittersweet, a reminder that human hearts can touch in profound ways, even without physical expressions of love, the ache of longing tempered by the awareness of choice, and the realization that restraint can be a form of love too, honoring both herself and those around her. As the story of that summer settled in her memory, Claire reflected on the lessons it had taught her, about loneliness, about care, about emotional intimacy, about boundaries, about longing and responsibility, and she felt gratitude for the brief, powerful connection, knowing it had changed her, deepened her capacity for empathy, awareness, and understanding. And though the moments with Tyler would remain a memory, their impact would be permanent, shaping the way she approached life, love, and connection from that day forward. And as the sun set over Maplewood, casting warm light across the quiet streets, Claire sat by the window, heart full of memory and emotion, knowing that some stories do not end with action, that some connections exist quietly but powerfully, that longing and restraint can coexist, and that sometimes, the greatest love is the one that teaches us about ourselves, shapes us without being fulfilled, and leaves us richer, wiser, and more aware of the fragile beauty of the human heart.